Okay, have you ever stopped to wonder if you're selling a fantastic product, but to the completely wrong people? It is a mistake that can be unbelievably expensive, but as we're about to find out, it's also entirely preventable. So let's dive in and break down how one company learned this lesson the really, really hard way.
$40 million. Now, that's not a company valuation or some big funding round. Nope. That is the estimated cost of one single strategic mistake, a mistake made by a company that was successfully selling its product just to the wrong customers.
It's the kind of question that probably keeps founders and CEOs up at night. And the answer? Well, it lies in this fascinating, pretty cautionary tale about a company that had to learn one of the absolute hardest lessons in business. Not all revenue is good revenue.
So our story here is all about an identity management company called Gigya. And listen, they had a fantastic product, they were growing fast, they were totally on their way to becoming a leader in the industry. But just under the surface, a massive problem was brewing. Now, this wasn't a sign of failure in the traditional sense, not at all. It was a painful but absolutely necessary course correction. Gigya had come to this stark realization that an entire chunk of their business, the part served by this office, was built on a totally flawed premise. And this slide, this is where it gets really interesting, because it shows the disconnect so clearly. On one side, you have Gigya. They were selling this powerful, complex, enterprise-grade platform. But who were they selling it to? Small and medium-sized businesses who they didn't have the tech teams or the budgets or frankly the scale to actually use it the way it was meant to be used. And here you have it straight from the CEO, Patrick Salyer. He's putting it pretty plainly. It costs them just as much time and effort to land a small deal as it would have a massive enterprise contract, but the lifetime value was just a tiny fraction. The math, it just didn't work. It couldn't. So how in the world did this happen? Well, it wasn't just one single thing. It was a series of warning signs that, when you put them all together, painted a very, very clear picture of a strategy that was pretty much doomed from the start. So the crucial point here is that the red flags were everywhere. I mean, everywhere you looked, customers were basically buying a Swiss Army knife and then only using the toothpick. These smaller clients were just draining their support resources. They were struggling just to get the product up and running, and then, surprise, surprise, they were leaving. It was a textbook case of unsustainable unit economics. Gigya's story is a tough lesson, one they learned through really expensive trial and error. But what if you could have a crystal ball? What if you could test these big strategic assumptions before you invest millions? Well, today, that's actually becoming a reality thanks to AI. See, there's this new class of tools like Atypica.ai, and they are completely changing the game. They use AI to simulate real customer conversations and behaviors, which lets you get these deep insights into a target market without having to spend months on old-school research. It's exactly the kind of tool Gigya wishes they'd had. And this right here just brilliantly illustrates the difference. We are talking about taking a process that costs tens of thousands of dollars and takes almost 2 months and just squishing it down into about 20 minutes for around $100. I mean, that is a seismic shift in how you do strategic planning. And the process itself, it's surprisingly simple. You just define your business question, and then the AI generates these realistic customer personas. It runs thousands of simulated interviews, and then it pulls together all the key behavioral patterns for you. It's incredible. Okay, so let's play this out for a second. If Gigya had used a tool like this to test their whole SMB strategy, what would it have told them? Well, the AI would have waved 5 very large, very specific red flags right in their face. First, right off the bat, the AI personas would have screamed about a massive technical gap. You'd start getting quotes just like this one, showing that the people who were supposed to be implementing this really complex software, well, they just didn't have the background to do it successfully. That's red flag number 1. Second, the AI would have uncovered a huge mismatch in how customers perceived the value. The simulations would show that these SMBs, they weren't looking for a platform. No, they were trying to solve one specific little problem. They just wanted some social login buttons, and they couldn't possibly justify paying enterprise prices for a whole suite of features they'd literally never use. Third, the interviews would have just exposed the harsh reality of an SMB's limited resources. I mean, their engineers are already stretched thin trying to build their own product. They just don't have the bandwidth for a 6-month infrastructure project. And this creates a super dangerous buy but don't deploy pattern, which is a direct, predictable path straight to customer churn. Fourth, The AI would have actually modeled out the support costs. And because these small businesses lacked the internal expertise, guess what? They'd lean super heavily on Gigya's support team for, well, everything. This chart visualizes the outcome perfectly. A completely upside-down cost structure where the lowest-paying customers needed the most expensive support. And the fifth and final red flag, the real nail in the coffin, would be pricing. The AI personas would show that SMBs are focused entirely on that absolute monthly price, always trying to negotiate it down. Enterprises, on the other hand, they think in terms of value in scale and big annual contracts. This fundamental difference in mindset is a crystal clear sign your product positioning and your pricing model are completely wrong for this market. So, the lesson from Gigya's $40 million mistake, when you look at it through the lens of today's technology, it gives us a powerful new playbook for building a business. The old rules of strategy, yeah, they're being rewritten as we speak. And really, that's the ultimate takeaway here. The ability to deeply understand a customer segment, I'm talking their pains, their capabilities, their willingness to pay, it's just not a massive, expensive project anymore. It's becoming a quick, affordable, and absolutely essential check before you commit a single dollar or hire a single salesperson. So all of this leaves us with one final critical question to consider. Gigya assumed that small businesses needed what big enterprises needed. They were wrong, and man, it cost them dearly. So what is the one core assumption that your business is built on, and what would it cost you if you're wrong?